If there's a hill that I will die on, this is one of them. An easy mode would absolutely ruin a Souls game, and this is not like me throwing theories at the air. You can consider this to be a verifiable fact. So, let's talk about this article now that you know my position. And I will be open for people disagreeing with me on this. Just prove me wrong in any way. Prove me wrong in any way. But let's get started. This new Souls-like proves easy mode isn't just possible, it makes everything better. So firstly, I would like to say that the person writing this article is basically taking a dump on what Miyazaki has said in interviews, where he says that our games are designed in a way for players to get a feeling of achievement after they overcome difficulty. The difficulty is possible to be overcome so long as the players dedicate a little bit of time to learning how the different systems work. This is what Miyazaki has said. This is his design decision. All of that. The person who wrote this article believes that they know better than Miyazaki. They believe that, like, no, Miyazaki's wrong. You know, the person who's made this franchise that is so incredibly successful that it generated a genre called Souls-like. Okay? You're talking about a franchise that is successful on the level of the Dota mod, which spawned an entire new genre of games. Okay? That's how successful the Souls franchise is. This person just straight up says, nah, Miyazaki's wrong. Easy mode is possible, and it makes everything better. By the way, you wouldn't know from the title of this article, but this is a review. This article is a review for a video game called Steelrising. But of course, you know, just making reviews for video games, that's not going to get clicks. However, implying that this game is a Souls-like, which I'm not even sure if it is or if it's not. Fightin' Cowboy put up a video recently, which he called it a Souls-like, so I'm inclined to believe that it is because I trust Fightin' Cowboy. Anyway, he goes on to say, he or she, I'm sorry, they. Steelrising falls short of other titles of the genre, but it proves difficulty options don't act against the very premise of harsh challenges. Difficulty options don't act against the premise of harsh challenges? Okay. The opening moments of Steelrising felt surprisingly doable and fun for a Souls-like, a genre of game that often starts out with tough challenges and a go-figure-it-out kind of vibe. Once I hit the second map, I encountered an enemy that made me reach for the game's assist mode. Wow! Made it all the way into the second map. Way to give it a fair shot. You might think that flipping on an easy mode would let me breeze through the rest of the game mindlessly, but it didn't. Far from it. The game remains hard, but there was room to learn with more patient pacing. With this mode turned on, the game isn't constantly sending me back to a spawn area, drained of my experience points with time lost to loading screens. The mode offers variable difficulty options, so I can scale up to where the game wants me to be. No, that's wrong. You can scale up to where you want to be. You don't really care that much about where the game wants you to be. Steelrising isn't dethroning the masters of this genre, but it sure as hell is showing at least one way they can improve, and with a pretty cool aesthetic as that. Of course, the one way that the Souls genre can improve is by adding multiple difficulty options, apparently. Steelrising is the latest title from French developer Spiders. Spiders, by the way, do some really cool titles. These are the same people behind Technomancer, Mars Warlogs, and there's a bunch of other ones. I remember one, Bound by Flame, I believe, that I played. I like that game. That game was cool. So they do some interesting stuff. They also did Greedfall, if I'm not mistaken. Really cool developer. It's a Souls-like where you play as Aegis, a clockwork automat? I don't know. You must do battle with other similar creations in a steampunky alternative history twist on the French Revolution. The studio is known for narrative-focused RPGs such as 2016 The Technomancer, 2019 Greedfall. Spider's previous games, while perhaps being generally similar to something like a Mass Effect, usually march to the beat of their own drum. With Steelrising, I initially wasn't thrilled about seeing the studio chase the model of another game so closely. Probably has something to do with the fact that it's the Souls genre. And the author strikes me as someone that doesn't care for the Souls genre, only to predictably fall shy of the incredibly strong standard From Software has set in the genre over the years. If you are a die-hard Miyazaki fan who doesn't have time for imitators, Steelrising isn't likely to grab your attention. Despite an imaginative premise and some great character design with digestible RPG mechanics, there's just something missing here. It also struggled to maintain 60 frames per second on PC for me, which made the experience feel rougher than it should. Yeah, usually Spider's games are not the best when it comes to optimization. That's something that I've noticed as well. Yet all the boxes have been checked. Enemies are tough. You need to level up to meet their health and attack power. When you die, you drop your XP and return back to the last spawn point. With all of the enemies having been refreshed, tasked with recovering your don't call them souls, you'll continue to unlock new shortcuts and ways of traversing the winding maps as you move forward. You get the picture. But the assist mode is where it is worthy of note and conversation. Bro, I just want you to imagine something, okay? I just want you to imagine for a second that you are a developer that worked on Steelrising. Okay? I want you to just think about this for a split second. Imagine you're someone who potentially worked on the game's combat and you've worked tirelessly to try and make a good experience for players. Right? This person comes along, for starters, doesn't even put the name of your game in the title of the article. It's not here. The title of the article doesn't even mention Steelrising. It's a footnote beneath the title of the article. If you are reading this article, you wouldn't even know at the start. I mean, you'd have to start. If you just look at the title, you don't even know what game they're talking about. So that's number one. Then on top of it, it instantly just says it falls short of other titles of the genre, but proves difficulty options don't act against the very premise of harsh challenges. So basically, they take a dump on most of the things you've worked on, and then they shift the conversation towards the difficulty of the game, as if that's the most important part of the conversation. How about you tell me about, the special attacks that you can get or something like that? How does the special attacks work? Like, how do consumables work? Like, how does any of this stuff work? No. Let's talk about the assist mode. That's the most important thing, because it is the only thing worthy of note in conversation, apparently. So let's get into it. This mode is a set of options that let you change a variety of the game's functions. You can modulate the damage you take, scaling it down to 0% if you desire. I like how this person says you can scale it down to 0%. Another word for this would be there's a God mode built into the game. Just God mode. You'll still take fall damage, though. Yes, heaven forbid you have to look where you put your goddamn feet. You also choose to keep your XP when you die, adjust your stamina regeneration rate, and affect the cooling timer when you perform too many actions in a row. So you can adjust how fast your stamina recovery is. You can avoid losing XP when you die. I'm wondering why would you die if you just put the damage scaling down to 0, but I guess, it's for the people that don't do that. And affect the cooling timer you'll get when you perform too many actions in a row. I'm assuming that's like the cooldown of your special abilities. I wouldn't know, because you didn't talk about the combat at all in this review. The first thing you deign worthy of mention is the assist mode and the difficulty options. You mentioned nothing about the combat. I don't even know if you can dodge roll. I'm assuming you can. Continue. Those who bristle at the notion of easing the difficulty of a Souls-like, now they're talking to me, are likely worried that the core experience risks being diluted or lost, or simply misses the point of the genre. Yes. Many might worry that it's the virtual equivalent of removing guns from a shooter or jumping from a platformer. I don't think anyone would say that, but okay. I think it would be the equivalent of removing your health bar from a shooter and your health bar from a platformer. I mean, in case in the platformer you have a health bar, like if you look at Mario, for instance, you do have a health bar, which is you pick up the mushroom, you now have 2 hit points as opposed to 1. But anyway, continuing onwards, many might worry, no, I already read this part, but Steelrising's assist mode doesn't pull you away from the core gameplay. Rather, it lets you get a different perspective on it so you can actually get better at the core skills of attacking and dodging and potentially learn how leveling up can change those dynamics. How exactly are you getting better at dodging? By not taking damage. The option I found the most use was to reduce the damage to 0%. You mean God mode. The God mode cheat. All right. This meant that the first enemy that truly gave me some troubles, literally the first enemy that gave this person any kind of friction, the first enemy that gave any kind of friction, an automat that flings giant steel balls around on chains connected to its arms, could teach me its movesets instead of just beat the shit out of me and forcing me to restart every time I failed. It went from being a giant asshole to a sparring partner. Now I wonder how the giant automat feels about that. Yes, let's spar. The difference is you can deal damage to me and I can't deal damage to you. It's like, let's fight, except I don't have arms and you can just beat the shit out of me. I'm just a giant training dummy. It still knocked me on my ass every single time, but I could get up and say, okay, when it moves like this, I gotta get out of the way. Implying that you can't do that when you take damage. Okay. I learned where the openings were, how quick I should be in pressing my attack. I was able to bake a muscle memory into my response to this kind of enemy, and I didn't have to go all the way back to the damn spawn point and face all the damn enemies again to learn that. I will say something, and that is that spawn points, whenever you have challenging boss fights, are extremely important. And there are some runbacks that are just way too punishing. I can give you specific examples, like the Halan boss fight in Dark Souls 2. That was, as far as I can remember, the worst runback of any Souls game, or even any Souls-like ever. It was completely terrible, and it was absolute dog shit. I remember another one that a lot of people talk about. It hasn't been as carved into my memory. The Blue Smelter Demon runback was also extremely annoying. But I seem to remember I found some kind of like workaround on that one. It just had a little bit of RNG, in which sometimes I would make the run, sometimes I wouldn't. I just learned to accept that. But yeah, those are 2 examples of runbacks that are extremely hideous. Elden Ring is greatly improved when it comes to runbacks. Very few monsters have like a significant run back that I would consider problematic in Elden Ring. This is my opinion. But yes, the whole thing about having to run back, I can relate to that, and I do feel that sometimes run backs are too punishing. But that is a developer choice. Very much like we'll talk about the developer choices made for this game as well, even though I haven't played it, but we'll talk about what is said here about the assist mode and all of that. But for now, let's continue. I would love there to be a fake health bar so I could get a sense of how much damage they do to know, well, I would have died at this point. You know, man, it's like, what do you even say to that? How about, tell you what, how about use the actual health bar that the game gives you? I don't know, man. It's like, come on. Assist mode helped me understand the language of the game and has prepared me for when I'm ready to take those training wheels off, which is going to be never, because you are literally writing the game's review. You are literally reviewing this game. And from what I can tell, you've played through it with God mode on. it's like, it's... And I'm ready to take the training wheels off, take down these foes, and feel accomplished in how I've gotten better. How do you even get a feeling of accomplishment at that point? It's like you beat them in God mode. It's almost like you essentially look up the solution of the problem, and then you solve. It's almost like, okay, solve this math equation. You go and you look at the solution where it explains everything, and then you copy the solution. And you're like, okay, I get it now. Anyway, let me look at this thing. This is the assist mode. Enable assist mode, damage reduction, endurance regeneration speed, keep anima essence after death, easy cooling. Although Steelrising was designed to be a demanding game in standard mode, assist mode allows players to experience the game while tailoring the challenges to their own preferences and abilities. Please note, however, that by activating this mode, some difficulty-related achievements will not be unlockable. You will have to start a new game in standard mode if you wish to obtain them. Okay. Oh look, damage reduction percentage max. It's like, so while we're in this menu, this is a good time to say I fully respect a developer's decision to do this. I think this is a perfectly valid thing to do. Okay? I want to make that 100% clear. Because a lot of times when I talk about difficulty options in Dark Souls games, people are very quickly to bring up Celeste, and how Celeste has like a slow mode. It has where it plays like super slow, or it only moves when you hit an input or something like that, and that has allowed people that have extreme disabilities that has allowed them to actually play Celeste and enjoy that experience whilst it's still being challenging for them. I think that is awesome. I 1000% agree with a developer's design decision.
Be so grossly incandescent.
Just bought FXIF Complete Edition after grinding so hard on the free trial. D.
Z Bronicles, thank you very much for being gross for 5 months. Tip of the hat. Appreciate the support. Thank you. As I was saying, I wholeheartedly believe that if the developer's design decision is to implement a system like this, they should do it. This is their vision for their game, and it is what it is. So this is a system that I would probably not use, and if I felt compelled to use the system, it would probably be something that where I would be feeling like, this enemy feels unfair or something like that. But it takes a lot to get me to resort to that. So I don't think that I would personally use it, but I think it's a good thing that it's there if that is the developer's intent. And herein lies the key aspect of things. You see, a lot of people are going to use things like this and like Celeste to make the argument that every game should support these things. Interestingly enough, whenever it's a game that's not particularly popular, nobody talks about it. But whenever it is a Souls game, people are like, things like this should be baseline. It's time for From Software to respect its player base and implement difficulty options. And I fundamentally disagree with that argument because at the end of the day, like I said, it is a design decision that concerns the development team and nobody else. So like I said, I think that this is a good thing that it's in this game. If this is what the developers want to do, it's good to make it available for more people. That does not mean that this is a universal feature that should be implemented in every game. It should be a choice based on the development team and their design decisions and their design intent. Anyway, let's continue. The other difficulty options can also adjust what kind of game this is. Having XP stay with you means death plays a different role in the game. Stamina regeneration can make the game feel a bit quicker. Granted, when you turn on any of these features, there are certain achievements you can't unlock. I wonder if they complain about this. But that's fine. In fact, it really does preserve the crushing difficulty the devs were aiming for. Makes playing the game the way it was designed as something you could aspire to, not be punished so often for failing to meet its demands. I enjoy challenges and difficult experience in video games and elsewhere. I'm gonna go ahead and press this button right here to doubt. I like to see my own improvement in things I find interest in, but Souls-likes have far too often been too punishing of a teacher for me. Here's another concept that I would like to bring up. Why exactly are Souls games punishing? Because the player dies? I wonder how many people understand that death is a mechanic in video games, and it is often a mechanic that it is very poorly interpreted. Dying in a video game is basically the game teaching you you've made a mistake. Therefore, you die. Failing to retrieve your souls, or any equivalent in a Souls-like, is the game teaching you now you are trying to recover your progress too fast. Seems you haven't learned the lesson, so now I'm going to punish you a little bit more. It is a learning mechanic. Death is a learning mechanic in Souls. It's just that simple. As someone who struggles with my mental health and has to fight off enough real demons when something is frustrating, Souls-likes have remained something that feels too unkind to me. That's fine. That is perfectly fine. Don't play them. Just less likely to engage with them. I want to experience the thrill of beating these games. The accomplishment of having mastered something. Okay, this... The game is too punishing. I want to feel the thrill of beating these games, the accomplishment of having mastered something. I just don't want to have to master anything. This is what I get from this sentence. I just don't want to have to actually master anything. Well, what's the point? What is the point? Like, do you even read what you just wrote? Like, look, I'm a terrible writer. I'll admit to that. But like, what the hell is this? Benbu Gaming, thank you very much. Being roasting an S for 11 months. Tip of the hat. Appreciate support. Thank you. I want to experience the thrill. I just need to prioritize my personal cooldown timer for things in life that will never have a difficulty slider. Steelrising proves that a game can do this while still being quite hard. Assist mode didn't simply make the game easier. Yeah, it made it it made it more than easier. It made it not even remotely challenging at all. It was a helping hand that reframed the frenetic action to say, hey, you can actually do this, and here's how. Games need more. So at the end of the day, in this review, because this is a review, like, watch, if you go to the website, they have like a thing that goes for reviews, right? Where is it? Reviews? And I believe that this is a review, correct? At least I seem to remember finding it in the review section. I can't, I always have a hard time like, I had to Google the article. But anyways, I do remember this was tagged as kind of, they changed it to impressions. All right, whatever. The point is, in this impressions article, the only thing you talked about was the difficulty options. There's nothing here that actually talks about the combat of the game. How is the combat? Like, is there verticality? Is there jumping? Is there special attacks? Is there... Nothing. We just talk about the difficulty, and then on the title, we basically make the bold claim that easy mode isn't just possible, it makes everything better. It's like, I don't even know what to tell you about this. And if I remember correctly, yeah, here's the other thing. Like, if you look up this article, which the way that I found this article was Souls-like easy mode. So for starters, notice how the word review is there when this is in fact not a review. At least not according to the title of the article. It's supposed to be impressions. So the reason they do this is because review is a much more powerful keyword than impressions. So they will put the SEO indicating that it is a review, and the title that shows up on the Google search is even more inflammatory, which says Souls-likes need an easy mode, and Steelrising proves it. All right? Like, the whole thing around this article is so incredibly disrespectful towards the developers of Souls-like games, towards the community of Souls-like games, and towards the people that are simply looking to actually learn literally anything about the video game that this article is writing about. So I guess the only thing I can really say at this point is, like, seriously? Try to be just a little bit more respectful about the things that you are talking about. Just a little bit more respectful. All right? That's all.